The humanities are academic disciplines that study human culture. The humanities use methods that are primarily critical, or speculative, and have a significant historical element as distinguished from the mainly empirical approaches of the natural sciences. The humanities include ancient and modern languages, literature, philosophy, religion, and visual and performing arts such as music and theatre. Areas that are sometimes regarded as social sciences and sometimes as humanities include history, anthropology, area studies, communication studies, cultural studies, law and linguistics. Scholars in the humanities are humanities scholars, or humanists. The term humanist also describes the philosophical position of humanism, which some anti-humanist scholars in the humanities refuse. The Renaissance scholars and artists were also called humanists. Some secondary schools offer humanities classes, usually consisting of English literature, global studies, and art. Human disciplines like history, cultural anthropology, and psychoanalysis study subject matters that the experimental method does not apply to, and instead mainly use the comparative method and comparative research. Fields, classics. The classics, in the Western academic tradition, refer to cultures of classical antiquity, namely the ancient Greek and Roman cultures. The study of the classics is considered one of the cornerstones of the humanities. However, its popularity declined during the 20th century. Nevertheless, the influence of classical ideas in many humanities disciplines, such as philosophy and literature, remains strong. For example, the Gilgamesh epic from Mesopotamia, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Vedas and Upanishads in India and various writings attributed to Confucius, Laozi and Zhuangzi in China. History is systematically collected information about the past. When used as the name of a field of study, history refers to the study and interpretation of the record of humans, societies, institutions, and any topic that is changed over time. Traditionally, the study of history has been considered a part of the humanities. In modern academia, history is occasionally classified as a social science. Languages, while the scientific study of language is known as linguistics and is generally considered a social science or a cognitive science, the study of languages is still central to the humanities. A good deal of 20th century and 21st century philosophy has been devoted to the analysis of language and to the question of whether, as Wittgenstein claimed, many of our philosophical confusions derive from the vocabulary we use. Literary theory has explored the rhetorical, associative, and ordering features of language. And historical linguists have studied the development of languages across time. Literature, covering a variety of uses of language including prose forms, poetry and drama, also lies at the heart of the modern humanities curriculum. College-level programs in a foreign language usually include study of important works of the literature in that language, as well as the language itself. Law. In common parlance, law means a rule that is enforceable through institutions. The study of law crosses the boundaries between the social sciences and humanities, depending on one's view of research into its objectives and effects. Law is not always enforceable, especially in the international relations context. It has been defined as a system of rules, as an interpretive concept to achieve justice, as an authority to mediate people's interests, and even as the command of a sovereign, backed by the threat of a sanction. However one likes to think of law, it is a completely central social institution. Legal policy incorporates the practical manifestation of thinking from almost every social science and discipline of the humanities. Laws are politics, because politicians create them. Law is philosophy, because moral and ethical persuasions shape their ideas. Law tells many of history's stories, because statutes, case law and codifications build up over time. And law is economics, because any rule about contract, tort, property law, labor law, company law and many more can have long-lasting effects. The noun law derives from the late Old English legu, meaning something laid down or fixed, and the adjective legal comes from the Latin word lex. Literature. Literature is a term that does not have a universally accepted definition, but which has variably included all written work. writing that possesses literary merit, and language that foregrounds literariness, as opposed to ordinary language. Etymologically, the term derives from Latin literatura, writing formed with letters, although some definitions include spoken or sung texts. Literature can be classified according to whether it is fiction or non-fiction, and whether it is poetry or prose. It can be further distinguished according to major forms such as the novel, short story or drama. And works are often categorized according to historical periods, or according to their adherence to certain aesthetic features or expectations. Performing arts. The performing arts differ from the plastic arts insofar as the former uses the artist's own body, face, and presence as a medium, and the latter uses materials such as clay, metal, or paint, which can be molded or transformed to create some art object. Performing arts include acrobatics, busking, comedy, dance, film, magic, music, opera, juggling, marching arts, such as brass bands, and theatre. Artists who participate in these arts in front of an audience are called performers, including actors, comedians, dancers, musicians, and singers. Performing arts are also supported by workers in related fields, such as songwriting and stagecraft. Performers often adapt their appearance, such as with costumes and stage makeup, etc. There is also a specialized form of fine art in which the artists perform their work live to an audience. This is called performance art. Most performance art also involves some form of plastic art, perhaps in the creation of props. Dance was often referred to as a plastic art during the modern dance era. Music. Music as an academic discipline can take a number of different paths, including music performance, music education, musicology, ethnomusicology, music theory and composition. Undergraduate music majors generally take courses in all of these areas, while graduate students focus on a particular path. In the liberal arts tradition, music is also used to broaden skills of non-musicians by teaching skills such as concentration and listening. Theatre. Theatre is the branch of the performing arts concerned with acting out stories in front of an audience using combinations of speech, gesture, music, dance, sound and spectacle, indeed any one or more elements of the other performing arts. In addition to the standard narrative dialogue style, theatre takes such forms as opera, ballet, mime, kabuki, classical Indian dance, Chinese opera, mummers plays, and pantomime. Dance. Dance generally refers to human movement either used as a form of expression or presented in a social, spiritual or performance setting. Dance is also used to describe methods of non-verbal communication between humans or animals, and motion in inanimate objects. Choreography is the art of creating dances, and the person who does this is called a choreographer. Definitions of what constitutes dance are dependent on social, cultural, aesthetic, artistic, and moral constraints and range from functional movement to codified, virtuoso techniques such as ballet. In sports, gymnastics, figure skating and synchronized swimming are dance disciplines while martial arts kata are often compared to dances. Philosophy. Philosophy etymologically, the love of wisdom is generally the study of problems concerning matters such as existence, knowledge, justification, truth, justice, right and wrong, beauty, validity, mind, and language. Philosophy is distinguished from other ways of addressing these issues by its critical, generally systematic approach and its reliance on reasoned argument, rather than experiments. Philosophy used to be a very comprehensive term, including what have subsequently become separate disciplines, such as physics. Today, the main fields of philosophy are logic, ethics, metaphysics, and epistemology. Still, it continues to overlap with other disciplines. The field of semantics, for example, brings philosophy into contact with linguistics. Since the early 20th century, philosophy in English-speaking universities has become much more analytic. Analytic philosophy is marked by emphasis on the use of logic and formal methods of reasoning, conceptual analysis, and the use of symbolic and/or mathematical logic, as contrasted with the continental style of philosophy. This method of inquiry is largely indebted to the work of philosophers such as Gottlob Frege, Bertrand Russell, G. E. Moore, and Ludwig Wittgenstein. Religion. New philosophies and religions arose in both East and West, particularly around the 6th century BC. Over time, a great variety of religions developed around the world, with Hinduism, Sikhism, Jainism, and Buddhism in India, Zoroastrianism in Persia being some of the earliest major faiths. In the East, three schools of thought were to dominate Chinese thinking until the modern day. These were Taoism, legalism, and Confucianism. The Confucian tradition, which would attain predominance, looked not to the force of law, but to the power and example of tradition for political morality. In the West, the Greek philosophical tradition, represented by the works of Plato and Aristotle, was diffused throughout Europe and the Middle East by the conquests of Alexander of Macedon in the 4th century BC. Abrahamic religions are those religions deriving from a common ancient Semitic tradition and traced by their adherents to Abraham, a patriarch whose life is narrated in the Hebrew Bible Old Testament, where he is described as a prophet, and in the Quran, where he also appears as a prophet. This forms a large group of related largely monotheistic religions, generally held to include Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and comprises over half of the world's religious adherents. Visual arts, history of visual arts. The great traditions in art have a foundation in the art of one of the ancient civilizations, such as ancient Japan, Greece and Rome, China, Pakistan, Greater Nepal, Mesopotamia and Mesoamerica. Ancient Greek art saw a veneration of the human physical form and the development of equivalent skills to show musculature, poise, beauty and anatomically correct proportions. Ancient Roman art depicted gods as idealized humans, shown with characteristic distinguishing features. In Byzantine and Gothic art of the Middle Ages, the dominance of the Church insisted on the expression of biblical and not material truths. The Renaissance saw the return to valuation of the material world, and this shift is reflected in art forms, which show the corporeality of the human body, and the three-dimensional reality of landscape. Eastern art has generally worked in a style akin to Western medieval art, namely a concentration on surface patterning and local color. A characteristic of this style is that the local color is often defined by an outline. This is evident in, for example, the art of India, Tibet and Japan. Religious Islamic art forbids iconography, and expresses religious ideas through geometry instead. A physical and rational certainties depicted by the 19th century Enlightenment were shattered not only by new discoveries of relativity by Einstein and of unseen psychology by Freud, but also by unprecedented technological development. Increasing global interaction during this time saw an equivalent influence of other cultures into Western art. Media types, drawing as a means of making a picture, using any of a wide variety of tools and techniques. It generally involves making marks on a surface by applying pressure from a tool, or moving a tool across a surface. Common tools are graphite pencils, pen and ink, inked brushes, wax color pencils, crayons, charcoals, pastels, and markers. Digital tools that simulate the effects of these are also used. The main techniques used in drawing are, line drawing, hatching, cross-hatching, random hatching, scribbling, stippling, and blending. An artist who excels in drawing is referred to as a draftsman or draftsman. Painting, File, Mona Lisa, by Leonardo da Vinci, is one of the most recognizable artistic paintings in the Western world. Painting taken literally is the practice of applying pigments suspended in a carrier and a binding agent to a surface such as paper, canvas or a wall. However, when used in an artistic sense it means the use of this activity in combination with drawing, composition and other aesthetic considerations in order to manifest the expressive and conceptual intention of the practitioner. Painting is also used to express spiritual motifs and ideas. Sites of this kind of painting range from artwork depicting mythological figures on pottery to the Sistine Chapel to the human body itself. Color is highly subjective, but has observable psychological effects, although these can differ from one culture to the next. Black is associated with mourning in the West, but elsewhere white may be. Some painters, theoreticians, writers and scientists, including Goethe, Kandinsky, Isaac Newton, have written their own color theories. Moreover, the use of language is only a generalization for a color equivalent. The word red, for example, can cover a wide range of variations on the pure red of the spectrum. There is not a formalized register of different colors in the way that there is agreement on different notes in music, such as C or C in music, although the Pantone system is widely used in the printing and design industry for this purpose. Modern artists have extended the practice of painting considerably to include, for example, collage. This began with Cubism and is not painting in strict sense. Some modern painters incorporate different materials such as sand, cement, straw or wood for their texture. Examples of this are the works of Anselm Kiefer. Modern and contemporary art has moved away from the historic value of craft in favor of concept. This has led some to say that painting, as a serious art form, is dead, although this has not deterred the majority of artists from continuing to practice it either as whole or part of their work. Film. Origin of the term. The word humanities is derived from the Renaissance Latin expression studia humanitatis, or study of humanities. In its usage in the early 15th century, the studia humanitatis was a course of studies that consisted of grammar, poetry, rhetoric, history, and moral philosophy, primarily derived from the study of Latin and Greek classics. The word humanities also gave rise to the Renaissance Italian neologism humanisti, whence humanist, Renaissance humanism. History. In the West, the study of the humanities can be traced to ancient Greece, as the basis of a broad education for citizens. During Roman times, the concept of the 7 liberal arts evolved, involving grammar, rhetoric and logic, along with arithmetic, geometry, astronomy and music. These subjects formed the bulk of medieval education, with the emphasis being on the humanities as skills or ways of doing. A major shift occurred with the Renaissance humanism of the 15th century, when the humanities began to be regarded as subjects to study rather than practice, with a corresponding shift away from traditional fields into areas such as literature and history. In the 20th century, this view was in turn challenged by the postmodernist movement, which sought to redefine the humanities in more egalitarian terms suitable for a democratic society. Today, in the United States, the Humanities Indicators, unveiled in 2009 by the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, are the first comprehensive compilation of data about the humanities in the United States, providing scholars, policymakers and the public with detailed information on humanities education from primary to higher education, the humanities workforce, humanities funding and research, and public humanities activities. Modeled after the National Science Board unregistered trademark Science and Engineering Indicators, the Humanities Indicators are a source of reliable benchmarks to guide analysis of the state of the humanities in the United States. If the STEM crisis is a myth, statements about a crisis in the humanities are also misleading and ignore data of the sort collected by the Humanities Indicators. The Humanities in American Life. The 1980 United States Rockefeller Commission on the Humanities described the humanities in its report, The Humanities in American Life. Through the humanities we reflect on the fundamental question, what does it mean to be human? The humanities offer clues but never a complete answer. They reveal how people have tried to make moral, spiritual, and intellectual sense of a world where irrationality, despair, loneliness, and death are as conspicuous as birth, friendship, hope, and reason. In liberal arts education, the Commission on the Humanities and Social Sciences 2013 report The Heart of the Matter supports the notion of a broad liberal arts education, which includes study in disciplines from the natural sciences to the arts as well as the humanities. Many colleges provide such an education. Some require it. The University of Chicago and Columbia University were among the first schools to require an extensive core curriculum in philosophy, literature, and the arts for all students. Other colleges with nationally recognized, mandatory programs in the liberal arts are St. John's College, St. Anselm College and Providence College. Prominent proponents of liberal arts in the United States have included Mortimer J. Adler and E. D. Hirsch, Jr. In the digital age, researchers in the humanities have developed numerous large and small-scale digital corpora, such as digitized collections of historical texts, along with the digital tools and methods to analyze them. Their aim is both to uncover new knowledge about corpora and to visualize research data in new and revealing ways. Much of this activity occurs in a field called the digital humanities. Philosophical history, citizenship and self-reflection. Since the late 19th century, a central justification for the humanities has been that it aids and encourages self-reflection, a self-reflection that, in turn, helps develop personal consciousness or an active sense of civic duty. Wilhelm Dilly and Hans-Georg Adam assented the Humanities, a unregistered trademark attempt to distinguish itself from the natural sciences in humankind, unregistered trademark urge to understand its own experiences. This understanding, they claimed, ties like-minded people from similar cultural backgrounds together and provides a sense of cultural continuity with the philosophical past. Scholars in the late 20th and early 21st centuries extended the narrative imagination to the ability to understand the records of lived experiences outside of only a unregistered trademark's own individual social and cultural context. Through the narrative imagination, it is claimed, humanities scholars and students develop a conscience more suited to the multicultural world we live in. That conscience might take the form of a passive one that allows more effective self-reflection or extend into active empathy that facilitates the dispensation of civic duties a responsible world citizen must engage in. There is disagreement, however, on the level of influence humanities study can have on an individual and whether or not the understanding produced in humanistic enterprise can guarantee an identifiable positive effect on people. Truth and meaning. The divide between humanistic study and natural sciences informs arguments of meaning in humanities as well. What distinguishes the humanities from the natural sciences is not a certain subject matter, but rather the mode of approach to any question. Humanities focuses on understanding meaning, purpose, and goals and furthers the appreciation of singular historical and social phenomena. An interpretive method of finding truth rather than explaining the causality of events or uncovering the truth of the natural world. Apart from its societal application, narrative imagination is an important tool in the production of understood meaning in history, culture and literature. Imagination, as part of the toolkit of artists or scholars, helps create meaning that invokes a response from an audience. Since a humanities scholar is always within the nexus of lived experiences, no absolute knowledge is theoretically possible. Knowledge is instead a ceaseless procedure of inventing and reinventing the context a text is read in. Post-structuralism has problematized an approach to the humanistic study based on questions of meaning, intentionality, and authorship. In the wake of the death of the author proclaimed by Roland Barthes, various theoretical currents such as deconstruction and discourse analysis seek to expose the ideologies and rhetoric operative in producing both the purportedly meaningful objects and the hermeneutic subjects of humanistic study. This exposure has opened up the interpretive structures of the humanities to criticism. Humanities scholarship is unscientific and therefore unfit for inclusion in modern university curricula because of the very nature of its changing contextual meaning. Pleasure, the pursuit of knowledge and scholarship. Some, like Stanley Fish, have claimed that the humanities can defend themselves best by refusing to make any claims of utility. Any attempt to justify the humanities in terms of outside benefits such as social usefulness or in terms of ennobling effects on the individual is ungrounded, according to Fish, and simply places impossible demands on the relevant academic departments. Furthermore, critical thinking, while arguably a result of humanistic training, can be acquired in other contexts. And the humanities do not even provide any more the kind of social cachet that was helpful to succeed in Western society before the age of mass education following World War II. Instead, scholars like Fish suggest that the humanities offer a unique kind of pleasure, a pleasure based on the common pursuit of knowledge. Such pleasure contrasts with the increasing privatization of leisure and instant gratification characteristic of Western culture. It thus meets JAR 1/4 a GEN habemus a Euro unregistered trademark requirements for the disregard of social status and rational problematization of previously unquestioned areas necessary for an endeavor which takes place in the bourgeois public sphere. In this argument, then, only the academic pursuit of pleasure can provide a link between the private and the public realm in modern Western consumer society and strengthen that public sphere that, according to many theorists, is the foundation for modern democracy. Romanticization and rejection, implicit in many of these arguments supporting the humanities, are the makings of arguments against public support of the humanities. Joseph Carroll asserts that we live in a changing world, a world where cultural capital is replaced with scientific literacy, and in which the romantic notion of a Renaissance humanities scholar is obsolete. Such arguments appeal to judgments and anxieties about the essential uselessness of the humanities, especially in an age when it is seemingly vitally important for scholars of literature, history and the arts to engage in collaborative work with experimental scientists or even simply to make intelligent use of the findings from empirical science. The notion that in today's day and age, with its focus on the ideals of efficiency and practical utility, scholars of the humanities are becoming obsolete was perhaps summed up most powerfully in a remark that has been attributed to the artificial intelligence specialist Marvin Minsky, a Euro with all the money that we are throwing away on humanities and art, give me that money and I will build you to be a better student. Minsky's faith in the superiority of technical knowledge and his reduction of the humanities scholar of today to an obsolete relic of the past, supported by the tax dollars of romantics fondly recalling the days of the GI Bill, echoes arguments put forth by scholars and cultural commentators that call themselves post-humanists, or transhumanists. The idea is that current trends in the scientific understanding of human beings are calling the basic category of the human into question. Examples of these trends are assertions by cognitive scientists that the mind is simply a computing device, by geneticists that human beings are no more than ephemeral husks used by self-propagating genes, or by bioengineers who claim that one day it may be both possible and desirable to create human-animal hybrids. Rather than engage with old-style humanist scholarship, transhumanists in particular tend to be more concerned with testing and altering the limits of our mental and physical capacities in fields such as cognitive science and bioengineering in order to transcend the essentially bodily limitations that have bounded humanity. Despite the criticism of humanities scholarship as obsolete, however, many of the most influential post-humanist works are profoundly engaged with film and literary criticism, history, and cultural studies, as can be seen in the writings of Donna Haraway and N. Catherine Hales. And in recent years there has been a spate of books and articles re-articulating the importance of humanistic study. Examples include, Harold Bloom, How to Read and Why, Hans Ulrich Gumbrecht, Production of Presence, Frank B. Farrell, Why Does Literature Matter? John Carey, What Good Are the Arts? Lisa Sunshine, Why We Read Fiction, Alexander Nahamas, Only a Promise of Happiness, Rita Flosky, Uses of Literature, Adam Gopnik, Why Teach and Study English. See also, Outline of the Humanities, Great Books Programs in Canada, Liberal Arts, Social Sciences, Human Science, The Two Cultures, List of Academic Disciplines, Public Humanities, Periodic Table of Human Sciences in Tinbergen's 4 Questions, Environmental Humanities, References. External links, the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, USA, Humanities Indicators, USA, National Humanities Center, USA, the Humanities Association, UK, National Humanities Alliance, National Endowment for the Humanities, USA, Institute, Arts and Humanities, Australian Humanities Review, Australian Academy of the Humanities, European Science Foundation, Humanities, National, Dana Centre for the Humanities at St Anselm College, American Academy Commission on the Humanities and Social Sciences.